Hey everyone, welcome back to the BentBox YouTube channel. I'm here, as always, Chris, the main face of BentBox. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this Friday morning. So I wasn't really sure what to talk about for this video. I've had a couple ideas, rambling around in my head as I do. But I figured one cool thing that I could do, if anyone's interested, so that's kind of, this one's for the real ones. I think you'll find out soon why. I've been doing some lettering work and just kind of testing and getting my feet wet with it. I'm a writer, first and foremost. I'm a graphic designer as well, at least more, amateur-ish. I like it. It's fun. Typically all the logos that we tend to put into a lot of our comic books are in some way, shape, or form touched by me. That said, I know I've been teasing for a while a comic that we've been partnering with this Israeli artist named Roy Stroyer, who is insanely talented. If you've been paying attention to any of the posts or been seeing any of the posts that we've been sharing about the project, you will know that it's mind-blowing, and the guy has insane talent, and we're extremely excited to bring this to you guys through BentBox. And one of the really cool things is I recently had a meeting with Roy. So this is his first comic. And I think he's kind of presented that pretty well. He's kind of made that known as he's been sharing a lot of the pages, the prologue, as you would. He's been asking a lot of questions. To myself and the BentBox team, we kind of work as a collective in some way, shape, or form, where we're able to kind of share ideas and concepts and help, each other work on each other's projects. But, he's got a curious mind. He wants to make sure that he does his first comic as well as possible, which is great, and I love helping where I can. And one of those ways recently was lettering. Now, I by no means am an expert in lettering, nor have I actually ever lettered a comic book. So I took this as kind of a challenge to, collaboratively work together on this prologue, kind of get a vibe for what we want to do with the lettering, and to really help it, to help marry it well with his insane art style. So I got to research it. Lettering styles, different fonts to use, all the way from like traditional American comic books to manga, and kind of just getting a feel for what we think might match the vibe of the comic book. So we're going to peel back the onion a little bit, and I'm going to show you a little behind the scenes process of lettering the prologue to this book. Now, we haven't completed it yet, but right here, I'm going to show off the first iteration or, version of the lettering that we tried on this page. This was done by Roy. He was kind of just feeling it out, seeing how to do lettering, where the placement should be, that kind of thing. So we had a bit of a brainstorming session, which was a lot of fun. I spent some time, once again, researching different lettering styles and figuring out what would fit this amazing book. And I kind of came up with a mix of manga and Western. Now, I really like how manga is lettered, specifically certain specific mangas. The lettering, the actual lettering itself is kind of smaller inside of the bubble. The bubbles can be kind of rough and jagged. You can work with either thin or thicker outline. So I just really like that style. I feel like it's bold. It can really show forward on a page, especially if it's a page. It's also kind of minimalistic, so it can show forth on a page that is very complex and the art is just going every which way. Having this lettering that doesn't really draw attention to itself in a way to where it's being distraction from the art is important. We want the eye to go to this lettering, to read it, to follow the story, but we also don't want it to take you out of the page. So right here you can see that I took a couple steps, made a couple different layers, tried to really land on a style that I liked, or at least present Roy with a handful of different styles, since this is his book. And I by no means want to take over his book, especially mess with his vision. But we had a really fun meeting to go over all these styles. He was extremely appreciative because by the end of it, we went with this. So it's this nice black bubble with a little white outline, lettering kind of pushed in a bit, doesn't distract from the art, but it kind of feels like it's a part of it at the same time. So we're very happy with how this turned out. and this is how we're going to go moving forward. Now we might do some inversion as we hit a page like in a dark cave that's already black. It might look really good. We haven't tested it yet. That black bubble with a white outline, that might be a nice little pop, or it might just feel like, it just fits into the page, or we might inverse it, but we'll see. So anyway, that was an extremely fun process that we just went through. We are having a blast continuing it, and obviously the prologue should be out anytime now. The pages are actually completed. The story's been written. It's just finalizing the lettering now that we really landed on the style we wanted. And that brings me to, I believe, one of our first videos that has to do with ranking. So I figured, like I said, this is one's for like the real ones. This is for the graphic designers or letterers or artists out there who are working on a comic book or anything for the most part that has to deal with lettering or needs some form of font. So this is my personal top 5 fonts as a graphic designer. So I have an insanely large library of fonts. I've been collecting them, commercial licensed fonts for years, ever since I did indie game development, mainly because, obviously you have UI and sometimes speech bubbles there for characters and little tutorials and all that kind of stuff. And I really like to flesh out my ideas and make everything feel hand-touched and original and not just the same font over and over again, while also not distracting with all these different random fonts. So I just have this huge library to choose from, which in turn has become very valuable to me, because now if I want to letter a book, or if I'm working with an artist and we're trying to letter something coming up, I can literally point them to this Google Drive, this like treasure trove of fonts. Now, if you're not into fonts or graphic design, this might not interest you a ton, and that's fine. If you are a nerd like me when it comes to graphic design, this might be a lot of fun. So here are my top 5 fonts for graphic design and, subtext for comic books and games and whatever. I'm going to start at number 5 and work my way to my favorite font that I use all the time, probably too much. Number 5 is a font called Alt System Code. Now, this font might look familiar to some of you who have read some of our books, specifically Artificial. This is actually like the main language for the partition that was introduced in issue 2. But I love this font for like that futuristic analog / computer vibe, if you're going for anything like that, whether you want to use it for a screen on a page or specifically the speech of a robot or an android or anything like that. It really gives you the vibe of just like circuits and ones and zeros, and I just love it. Number 4 is something called Black Throne. Now, Black Throne, I haven't really used yet in comic books, but graphic design wise, it might look familiar because it's actually the font that we chose for Con at the Arcade. We wanted to go with that like 70s / 80s, vibe of dusty arcade cabinets and mullets and a Trans Am and all that kind of wrapped into this one style, and it just really fit what we were going for. It's nice, thick black lettering. Now, I'm a sucker for letters impacted or merged into other letters. So as you can see with like the A above the L, I love that kind of stuff. So if a font has that built in, I'm a big fan. Number 3 is Cornerstone. Cornerstone it's not flashy, and there's not really a lot going on, but the reason why it's higher than the other two is it's just very versatile. I just love the font. There's something about like some nice rounded corners while everything still looks kind of like blocky, and the thick lines and edges all looks very uniform. Just a huge fan. Also love fonts that are like all caps. They don't have a lowercase or an uppercase. It's just one specific style. Big fan. Gonna have to figure out a way to put it into use at some point in one of our comics coming up. So keep a lookout for Cornerstone. For all I know, it'll be on a side of a building or something like that. But definitely one of my top 5. Number 2 is Bradley Hand. Now, Bradley Hand is more of like a script-esque style. It kind of just looks like a handwritten letter. So I really like that, especially if you are exploring that type of style for a comic book page, whether it is actually expressing a letter or a note or something like that that would be handwritten, without it being too hard to read, because it's obviously, if you actually put in some form of script, lettering, it can be kind of challenging to read. So this is just a fun one to use when you really want that handwritten feel. And this, if you noticed it previously, this is actually the one that we are favoring when it comes to the Roy Stroyer comic book coming up. So we really liked this one for just the main text. And finally, number 1 is actually a font called Fantastic. Now, once again, if you are a fan of any of our books or have read any of them, this might look familiar. This is actually the main font used in the Artificial series. The Alt system code was used for the robotic sounds and speech between Android or the partition, and then Fantastic was used just between our main characters and other ancillary characters. Just the main font we like to use. There's something about it. It feels slightly whimsical, but also kind of easy to read. It's kind of a more sophisticated, like, Comic Sans, which is, the like OG comic book font. So going with this was an easy choice, especially with Artificial. We really wanted it to have that handcrafted touch. We didn't want anything to feel unoriginal. We wanted it to feel original, since it was basically a love letter to human creativity. That's what it's always been. So those are our top 5, or my top 5 at least. If you're a nerd like me or are super interested in graphic design, I highly recommend you go check out as many sites as you can and pick up as many fonts as you can. It's kind of like an investment in your future, in your creative future. Honestly, my favorite site to go to for fonts is something called Hungry JPEG, so highly recommend checking them out. I'm pretty sure every single font on there, including some of the graphics, everything comes with a commercial license. So it's a really cool, and they have amazing deals all the time. Monthly freebies, all kinds of cool stuff. So not a sponsor, but could be. Hey guys, could be, maybe. But either way, go check them out. Now, once again, if you are a nerd like me and you have your favorite font or another comic book creator, comment it below. Let me know what it is. Maybe it's something that I'm not familiar with or don't have already in my treasure chest of fonts. I would love to add more. And if you're local to the area, Southwest Florida, come see me at Charlie's Epic Con this Sunday. I'll be there with fresh prints of Blossom and World's Forgotten 1, which is the first time it's been printed. So we have a bunch of really cool stuff. Would love to see, people come hang out and say hi and pick up some cool books. All right, that's it for this Friday. Like always, like, share, subscribe, all that stupid stuff that we need to say, I guess. I don't know if it's contractually obligated or what, but it needs to be said. And I will see you next week. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good one, guys.